Who do people say that the Son of Man is?
Um, they say that he was the nicest guy that ever was. Who do you think that he is?
I, I mean, I think he's the Christ, the Son of the living God. But it is interesting to put things in these terms. I kind of want to deconstruct the term a little bit because when people hear that term, I think the onus is on the word man, which is
Uh-huh.
anthropos. So it really has to deal with what's your understanding of humanity and what's your understanding of the telos of humanity. Or to put it in biblical terms, this would be for the modern scholar. Is Jesus referring to the Son of Man in Ezekiel's terms exclusively, meaning
Mm.
that man is fundamentally less than God? Uh, so it's really emphasizing his mortality, or is this the Daniel 7 understanding? And us fundies would take the Daniel 7 understanding of the
What's
Son of Man receiving all glory.
okay? Okay, and the response would be, why not both? Uh, right, which is what you get in the humanity of Jesus. Less than God as regards his human nature, but equal to God as regards his divine nature.
Right. And that's baked into the term itself because you have the word man there.
Hmm. Yeah, it is. That's true. I mean, it is kind of like the well, you need both Son of Man and Son of God. Do we ever have those juxtaposed in the scriptures?
I mean, beautiful
When I get it in
savior.
holy, 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 or no, yeah, beautiful Savior. That's what it is.
I don't do people don't like that hymn because they sing it too much growing up because I love it. We'll sing it on Transfiguration, and I know the tune is prone for emotion, but that's fine. It's really nice at funerals singing that.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it either. And even though I did sing it a lot. But it's simple. So I think about the value for especially for children. It's actually something that's really learnable by children. You know.
Right? Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. So if we understand the term man to be something to use a couple weeks ago, man is metaphysically deficient. We're not able to do anything. Then people are going to say that the Son of Man is, well, who cares?
Right. Okay. Because he's a son of man, what does it matter? Unless there's this kind of hearkening back to the original design, right? A new Adam, because Adam was something to remark at, right? You should care about Adam if you're in the Garden of Eden. You care about Adam because he's created in the image and likeness of God, and he's been given dominion over all things. And so you care about the Son of Man when man is recreated, right?
Hmm.
Which
Yeah,
the angels care about man for that reason, right?
they long to look into things that you get to see now.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's incredible. Now, to back it up a little bit, we're going to get philosophical, which is fine, because I find that Jesus is the best natural philosopher throughout the Gospels. So he says, "Consider the lilies," or "Look at the sparrows," or "Look at the sky." Here in Matthew
Right.
16, and he's saying, you guys are able to deduce a lot from the red sky. Here it is, red sky in the morning, sailors warning, red sky at night, sailors delight. Came from the Bible. And Jesus is saying he's not chastising them for making natural observations, but what he is chastising them for is that seems obvious to you, even though you have to build that repertoire up over years of observation. And now that this man is here who's raising the dead and healing the blind and casting out sickness, you have no idea what's going on.
Yeah. Right. So what is he pointing out there? Is it uh I mean, is it their ignorance or is it their hard-heartedness? Because it's not, you might look at the color in the sky and just like not know because you've never attempted to make the observations before. And so you remark at the pretty colors, right? But they are in the business of attempting to understand what's going on with Jesus and have taken in all of the data, and so it's not a problem it's not an education problem. Seems to be a theme that keep coming back to. The problem is not an education problem.
Oh, yeah, sure. So John 9, the blind man, it's because you said we see that you are even more blind, right?
Right, that's right. And yeah, for instance, I mean, Jesus, the scribes and the Pharisees have 11. They're in the business of teaching, of um, uh, espousing doctrines, um, and so they're the fact that they can't read the signs. This is another kind of like can't versus won't. Is it that they can't, or that they just refuse to acknowledge that possibility?
Now, isn't this fascinating that these enemies, Pharisees and Sadducees, in verse 1 and verse 6, they're lumped together now, and anytime they come together, it's to oppose a totally holy person. So they did it back in Matthew 3 with John the Baptist.
Uh,
And now here they are doing it with Jesus. Even though these guys hate each other, they realize that what they really love, money, which Jesus points out, is at stake.
Yeah, there's a good lesson there about strange bedfellows, right? So you've you know it doesn't work to say the enemy of my enemy is my friend. It works for a minute. It works for a minute, but not. There's no there, right? There's nothing positive. Yeah.
Well, and Paul is brilliant with this. Jesus lets Paul do this. He doesn't drive it in yet, but Paul gets up and says, I'm here on account of the resurrection. All right, fellas, go."
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. That's good, and we should take stock of that more because um, we we tend to regard the enemies of the church like bad theology or worldliness or whatever. We tend to regard them as sort of a monolith out there, which makes them feel bigger than they are. But in fact, you know they would kill each other. You know.
Now, isn't this fascinating though? So you said I don't think it's an educational problem, and I think you're right. But on the other hand, the Pharisees, they don't actually understand what the story of Jonah is about either. Because in verse 4, he says the only sign I'm going to give you is the sign of Jonah, which is the resurrection. And so it's the Sadducees. So in a sense, he is doing what Paul is doing, just not in so blatant of terms.
Sure. Yeah. That's got me thinking about the way they read any of those accounts. So do you think it's they? It's not them that they are not the ones that are saying that he's Elijah or one of the prophets or Jeremiah. It's the people, right? It's the people who are saying that.
Oh, okay, that's good. I mean, let's go through this list because I think we can kind of identify who's saying these particular names. So John the Baptist, that's Herod.
Yeah, right.
And
And okay, so before you go on, so it's Herod. Herod's got this personal experience with John the Baptist. What about Jesus is reminiscent of John the Baptist?
they preach the same thing, repent for the kingdom of heaven is near.
The message is the same. Yeah. But it's striking, isn't it, that like the whole that's about the only overlap, right? I mean, it's significant, right? They got the same, and that's remarkable too because it means that Herod's listening. Like he knows that he sees this commonality in the message. Yeah.
Right, because John the Baptist baptized, but we know in John, is it 4, that Jesus didn't baptize, but his disciples did?
Yeah. And John was in the wilderness, and Jesus was, was generally, going from town to town. It was not just like waiting for people to come to him, right? In fact, he
Sure.
was
So,
avoiding people coming to him.
and they still came to him. And then, but he
Mhm.
does get a little bit of a wilderness period for 40 days, but then he comes back.
Right. I wonder. Yeah, maybe if you knew that about Jesus, you might think he's another John too. Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. So that's Herod, John the Baptist. Others say Elijah.
Yeah, so that's a Jewish myth based on Malachi 4. So it's a misunderstanding of the recapitulation of Elijah.
Right. So the myth is that Elijah will be reincarnate or something like that.
Right. And since he never died, right, he's just going to return. And we see this at the cross when Jesus says, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. They say he's calling to Elijah. And part of that is because Eli, Eli, you can
Hmm.
hear the similarity there.
Yeah. So I don't know that there's a connection here, but I wonder whether the scribes would have thought something like this, given that they knew the prophecies, right? They know that Jesus is that the King of the Jews will be born in Bethlehem, right? They've read the scriptures.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Hmm.
In which, so you think about it, like, um, having Elijah come back would be okay if you are a priest or a Levite in Jerusalem, because what did Elijah do? He slaughtered all the prophets of Baal, and he ran out that wicked, he was the one responsible for driving, like anointing the leaders that would drive off the foreign oppressors, right? Wicked Queen Jezebel and the Syrians and so on, right?
Oh, that's good because that really is a contrast with the next prophet, who's Jeremiah, who is just thrown into exile.
That's right. Sell, give yourselves over to the Babylonians and build houses when you're in that captive city. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so there definitely is a political element to this, and how do you deal with the Roman Empire is always a question.
Yeah. Oh, that's fascinating. So I wonder, I might have been a stretch. It might be a stretch to say that Elijah represents kind of like throw off the oppressors, but I could see it. I mean, he wields the sword, right? But Jeremiah definitely is like, if you were a devotee of Jeremiah, you would expect captivity to involve, like, let's just lay down roots and just we'll build houses and plant vineyards, you know?
Yeah. Oh, so the irony with Elijah thinking it's a good thing is the very people who would want it to be Elijah are the very people who need to be overthrown, i.e., the Pharisees and the Sadducees.
That's right. That's right. So that somebody was asking me about this yesterday in Bible class. Is Babylon on the same level as Sodom and Gomorrah? And what's really interesting about that question is that biblically, yes, you get these cities: Babylon, Sodom and Gomorrah, Egypt, Philistia. You get all these cities, but in the end, those are all terms that are applied to Jerusalem, right?
Sure. And partially Rome, right? Isn't Revelation Babylon? But okay, that'd be really good. That'd be a really good comparison in the Bible. Do a Bible study on different cities.
Back up for just one second. If you're thinking about behavior-wise, or how you could, like if you were hypothesizing, I think he's Elijah come back or reincarnate. What do you see about Jesus that he does or says that looks like Elijah? I mean, by now he's raised a widow's son, you know,
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, so resurrection and Elijah's
feeding. Did Elijah didn't Elisha has the feeding of the multitude, but Elijah does feed people.
right. Yep, that's good. And it's Elijah who fasts for 40 days and then is attended to.
Yeah, seems to have a school of prophets kind of following him around.
Oh, yeah, that's good. Yeah. Now, Jeremiah, you could go the lay the roots down kind of approach, or isn't it interesting that we have a our word for complaining incessantly is named after Jeremiah?
Yeah. Right.
And so like the wailing prophet, right? And so uh do some people just see Jesus as kind of a whiner?
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I can't. It's hard to see that in the accounts in the Gospels. He doesn't come across that way. Instead, he seems to me like Jeremiah in chapter 7 with his temple sermon, right? So if he has already overthrown the tables in the temple, he is very much like Jeremiah, right? In fact, he quotes Jeremiah when he does that.
Hmm.
So does that happen twice? Does John give it to us the first instance, and the synoptics give it to us in the second instance?
That's my understanding based on the Levitical cleansing of a house.
Yeah,
But I don't know if
yeah.
you can't be dogmatic about it.
It would explain why they think he's Jeremiah, because he's like basically preaching Jeremiah's sermon in the temple.
N- now modern day, do you think some people would think he's Jeremiah because he's long-winded?
Yeah, maybe. Who is he? Yeah, that's good. Who is he like when he preaches the Sermon on the Mount? He's like Moses. So there you go. It doesn't say it here in Matthew 16, but doesn't it say it in one of the other Gospels, or the prophet, right? Which would be Moses, the prophet like Moses, right?
Yeah, Deuteronomy 18, right? And then also certainly like Solomon, and he says something greater than Solomon is here.
Yeah, so I it just feels like his long-windedness is not the same as Jeremiah's long-windedness, you know?
But so I wouldn't say that Jeremiah's long-windedness is really truly long-winded, because it's the word of God. It's just how it comes across,
Yeah, sure, sure.
or how you receive it. And then one of the prophets is kind of that's a cow catcher.
Yeah, yeah. This is kinda like novel theories about things. You probably know all about this, but somebody had suggested, that they'd read about Lazarus being the author of the Gospel of John, and all these clues, and I can't remember some of the details, but there were at least some of them that were kinda like, "Oh, huh, that I could see how you might make a case based on that single piece of evidence, but doesn't, oh, yeah, see how he loved him. See how he loved him, the beloved disciple, right?" That was one of the arguments. In any case, like, it's like, coming up with novel ideas for who the author of the book of Hebrews is. It's so clearly Paul, okay, right? So,
I agree with you, but what's some of the more novel ideas you've heard?
well, Apollos and Barnabas, and I don't know. That's what I've heard, I guess.
When I was in college, one of our professors wanted to be provocative, and so it was Priscilla. But it wasn't. She wasn't allowed to put her name on it because the church erased it because it was a woman. I'm just saying what I was taught. Things
Did you
have
go to Luther?
changed.
Did you go to Luther College?
Well, it was just down the street. I tell you what.
Or Luther
Now,
Seminaries in St. Paul, right? Yeah. Okay.
yeah, Luther Seminary. What now? Well, not anymore. What's fascinating is where this question takes place. Caesarea Philippi. And this is really provocative because there's a temple dedicated to Caesar there. That's why it's called Caesarea Philippi. So originally Caesarea, right? And then Philip, he's a tetrarch, right? And he kind of remodels the entire city, so it takes on his name as well. But literally a temple dedicated to emperor worship there. And do you know what it used to be called before it was Caesarea? The Canaan name?
No.
It was Baal Hermon.
Interesting. Interesting. A reference to Mount Hermon, right? The dew from which falls like the oil on Aaron's head.
Right. And then and then dedicated to Baal.
Yeah. Right.
So you've got all these false idols going all around you. This is a beautiful picture of America. It's like we've got all these former names, Caesarea Philippi. People are worshiping all different kind of stuff, and then Jesus comes to us, and then he asks the question, like, "Who do people in this area say that I am?" And then he asks, "Who do you say that I am?" In the midst of all this polytheism.
Yeah. So, uh, who do you hope that your people will say that he is? Your congregation members, would it be simply this confession of Peter, the Christ, the Son of the living God? Is that the same answer that we would be giving today, should be giving today?
Yes, and then defining those terms. What's fascinating is the different answers in the synoptics, because Mark is really short. Isn't it just "you are the Christ" in Mark?
Yeah, I
That
always
would,
conflate them, and so I just add whatever I want to the scriptures.
yeah, it's
You are
Mark
the Christ,
8.
yeah.
Yeah, Mark 8:29. And I think there it's operative what Mark is doing. If you remember Mark 1, the beginning of the gospel of Jesus Christ, the Son of God. And don't listen to those who will say that's not original, because I think it's thematic for the entire gospel that Jesus is the Son of God. And notably in Mark, nobody confesses that until the centurion at the foot of the cross, which
Mhm.
the theological statement there is you can't know the Son of God apart from the crucifixion, which really jives well here with Matthew as well, because Peter's going to make this confession, and yet he doesn't know what it means for Jesus to be the Son of the living God.
Right. Yeah, he knows some things about it. He knows that this is the fulfillment, but he doesn't know the way that gets played out, right? Yeah.
Right. So I would hope that people would just confess the second article of the creed,
That's
and
good. Yeah.
yeah, and then teach on that. But that's gonna get you there.
So now in both Luke and in Mark, this confession occurs immediately after the transfiguration, right? Which is always, or sorry, immediately before the transfiguration. And oh, okay, it does here too as well. I thought it came afterwards. It comes before. Never mind. That's
Right, and
interesting. Yeah.
we'll talk about it next week because Matthew and Mark both then tell us the transfiguration happened 6 days after this, and then Luke says it was about 8 days.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, Luke knows what he's doing because he says about 8 days, so he's not claiming a different time frame. But that'll be fun next week. Yeah, so that this is the overall theme of the synoptics is the first passion prediction and the confession of Peter happen before the transfiguration, and then you get two passion predictions after the transfiguration.
Right. Yeah. I mean, this is just glorious emphasis on the plainness of his speech, right? He began to show his disciples. This is kind of like what we were talking about last time concerning preaching, right? So, in order for them to understand what's going to happen to him, he has to be like layering. It doesn't work just to say it once, "I'm going to die and then I'm going to rise." By the way, because completely contrary to the air that they have been breathing.
Right. Now, my question is, why is Peter so adamantly against it? Like, what's going through his head?
So it seems to me you could start with just, you know, the Messiah cannot die because we have a promise of an eternal throne, right? First Samuel 8, um, or Second Samuel 8.
Okay,
He's going to reign on the throne eternally.
so Peter's a Nestorian at this point.
Yeah. Which, I mean, how could you not be? You've never seen it before, right? You've never seen death and resurrection before. Yeah.
Certainly, and then if you actually think he's God,
Mhm.
you're rightly thinking God can't die.
Yeah. Yeah. So you must be asking yourself, you must be scratching your head at various points, though, saying like, ah, he seems to get tired at times, and he is hungry, and whatever, and he prays an awful lot, right? Um, so you might be struggling to fit this into your paradigm about how he's the Son of God.
Now, is Jesus's words starting in verse 27 about picking up your own cross um, also instructive here? Because it seems like he's instructing Peter. Does Peter have in mind Matthew 10, when Jesus says it's enough for the disciple to be like his master? So does Peter understand what happens to Jesus is going to happen to me?
I don't think so, but I can't quite put my finger on why. And maybe part of it's because he will say later, when Jesus says you're going to deny me, he says, I will die with you if I have to. Right. So I think that he's thinking in terms of the success of this venture primarily, which is interesting because Jesus says he's going to on the third day be raised. So what that means to me is that they might have been willing to take literally the fact that he's going to be killed. They were figuratively interpreting the fact that he's going to be raised.
Well, now it all ties together. See, hermeneutics is the big thing.
Right. Yeah. And okay, so this is the problem with hermeneutics, is that when you encounter something that you believe can't be possible, you are inclined to interpret it figuratively. This is my body. The human inclination is to say not possible, and so therefore cannot be, right? Which is this is great, because the hermeneutical principle should be take Jesus at his word, which is a hermeneutical principle that applies not just to reading the scripture, but just generally to human discourse. You should take somebody the way that they want to be taken.
It'll save you a lot of hurt, I'll tell you that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I first encountered this notion. I think I was in college. Was I? Yeah, I was in college or seminary, and I was writing a paper on the crucifixion narrative in Matthew 27, where the graves are opened up. And I was reading Hermania. Are you familiar with that series? It's the Fortress Press commentary. A bunch of hierarchical guys. They got very impressive names. Like I think they got the rights to Rudolf Boltman on some stuff. And
Very, very like 70s aesthetic on the book covers.
oh, I mean, they did a great job with the layout. It's a nice red, and it looks really nice on your bookshelf. And they're
Okay.
very expensive. And but I was reading this, and this guy was his name like Luz or something like that. Let me look it up so I don't. Yeah, it was Luz. There you go, Ulrich Luz. I thought that guy played drums for Metallica, but whatever. Apparently, he writes Bible commentaries now. And no, that's Luz Ulrich. Do you know who the drummer for Metallica is? Lars?
No.
Never. Okay. Go go listen to the Black album, okay? And all the true fans will say that Master of Puppets is the best, but it's true, but you're not ready for it yet, okay? That'll be your summer repentance.
I
Anyways,
stopped listening 20 seconds ago. So
take me at my word. So anyways, this Luz guy in this Hermania commentary gets to Matthew 27 and he goes, I don't really know what to do with this, with the graves opening up, so I'm just going to skip over it.
that's good. At least there's some honesty. The libs have always been that honest in their, their assessment of things.
And I'm like,
So
you can do that?
it's fun. Oh, this is interesting. Because I have a theory that when we get to the end of Matthew 16, truly I say to you, there are some standing here who will not taste death until they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. I think that Peter takes that literally in the sense that he's going to benefit from that. And then they promptly go up the mountain and he thinks to himself, I don't have to taste death. Confirmation of his like rebuttal of Jesus going to the cross.
That's that's how I take it too. He thinks it's the transfiguration, but it's
The
ultimately
crucifixion.
the crucifixion. That'll be
Yeah.
good. Yeah, let's just talk about it now because it's not going to come up. Because the other way to take this would be the Son of Man coming back in his kingdom, Matthew 25. But then you run into this difficult hermeneutical problem. What do you do with this sentence of Jesus that some who are standing here will not taste death? Is that figurative or is that literal?
Right. Yeah. I-
So this makes sense because Dr. Peterson, who we know allegorizes the scriptures, he said he takes it as a blanket, like just a figurative sense. And you know, I disagree, but that's okay. See, I think you should take him literally here, and then what that really does is it glorifies the cross even more.
yeah. There's got to be some. So I use Mark 13 and Matthew 25. Is it Matthew 25 where it parallel to no Matthew 24? I use those as examples of how uh, although although you can know figurative versus literal. Like the scriptures are not obscure. You have to do the work, right? And where there's apparent obscurity, you have to do the work. But Jesus puts that to the test in Mark 13 and Matthew 24 because he seems to flit back and forth between talking about of the end of the age as in the destruction of Jerusalem and the end of the age as in the destruction of the cosmos. And I think he does it on purpose. And part of the reason why he does it seems to me is so that you connect those two events so you understand how they're related.
Well, add another layer to your two-layer dip. Let's make it 3 layers. And he's also talking about the crucifixion. Like I think he's
Yeah.
got three. I think he's got three reference points: the cross, AD 70, and the ultimate end of the world.
Yeah, it's a fractal. So the question would be which so in a fractal, this is kind of interesting. There's no priority really. Like you zoom in and you see the same thing, you zoom out and you see the same thing. But we could say so fractal is probably not the right illustration for it because the crucifixion is that's the main event, right? That's the main event from which all of the other events derive their
It's
significance.
certainly like the prism you have to look at the other events through, which is really
Sure.
comforting. So when Jesus tells us that all these horrible things are going to happen to us, if you look at all those details, all those things already happened to him, and he overcame them. So it's a really comforting thing, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent.
Hey, let's do some Trinitarian theology. So, what do you think about Jesus telling Peter in verse 17, was not flesh and blood who revealed this to you, but my Father who was in heaven? What's up with the Father being there?
Um, I don't. It does not seem strange to me that the Father is there. Jesus talks in, I guess it's in John, right? So he speaks what the Father has spoken to him, right? So it's all sourced from the Father. All wisdom, all knowledge, all authority comes from the Father. And so um, that's interesting. So what's in would be, I guess, kind of interesting would be, is Jesus saying unmediated from the Father, or mediated through Jesus, that this is revelation has come to him.
So, John 6, Jesus says, this is verse 44, no one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him, and I raise him up on the last day. This really, really gets into the doctrine of election, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, absolutely. You wouldn't be able to say these words, Peter, unless Jesus, unless the Father chose to reveal them to you. Um, I'm going to be teaching on Ezekiel 37 next week, and the dry bones is just like such as uh, crucial picture of the state of fallen sinful humans. I love to make this comparison. I did this in my sermon a little while ago. Like, I love thinking about the bondage of the will again. Love to make this comparison. Like, assessing dead bodies as to the likelihood that they will rise. It's like, that's silly.
Did you place a bet on Kalshi? Do you put all your funerals on the prediction markets?
That would be great. Yeah,
Can I rant about that for a second?
go for it.
So, and I have to keep up with the news. I've been out of the news a little bit, but Minnesota banned prediction markets. This is probably a month ago. So if you're not aware of this, you should go look it up. And it passed, got bipartisan support. Amazing. Minnesota Family Council is really pushing for it, and I think these things should be outlawed. Like, you shouldn't be able to bet on your smartphone if the weather's gonna rain more than what the meteorologist says, or like people are betting on celebrity interviews if they're gonna say particular words. Or Venezuela. Was this January? This is right when we interviewed Tim Wood, and somebody put $100,000 bet or more. It might have been $250,000 that the government of Maduro was going to topple within the week, and it happened. And so they they made ginormous bucks of money. And I don't know if it ever gotten covered, but it was probably somebody in the administration who had some intel on that. Like, that should not be legal. And we have monetized everything, and it's disgusting. And so the federal government then now was suing the state of Minnesota to reverse it, and they're tying these prediction markets, so Kalshi and what's the other one, Poly market,
Poly market.
yeah, and they're saying that's the same thing as like oil futures, and so you guys can't make it illegal.
Okay, so let's parse this out, because you said a whole bunch of things there. You started with an argument about kind of betting on ridiculous things, and implied, sort of obvious, that it's that betting on the number of times that a celebrity says something is no good. That's different from betting on things where the outcome might be influenced by the one making the bet, right? So there's some sort of like doctrine of fairness in betting, right? And the implication that is by the federal government, that's basically the same thing as equities trading and all of these equity vehicles. That sounds legit to me, like a legit argument. So here's my question. I'm not justifying these things, but what's the core of it? What's the thing that's morally unsound? And my point in asking that question is going to be that, like, these prediction markets are just like the natural conclusion of a more fundamental problem, right?
I think the core issue is monetizing everything, and then we used to think that gambling was a vice.
Why is gambling a vice?
Whole bunch of things. Manipulation of the poor, I think, has got to be right up near the top. But then also, if you look at how people have argued against usury over the years. The fundamental argument is that you are reaping fruit from something that doesn't actually produce anything.
Yeah. Yeah. It is by definition predatory. Um, the person that is delivering the money to you has not gained anything for the money that they are giving to you.
Yeah, so like it's one thing if you've got a bet, against your buddy, $5 on a football game. Like I really don't have a problem with that, and maybe I need to tease this out as to why. But it's another thing entirely, putting your life savings on the line on these mobile apps.
Yeah. So teasing that out would be good. And maybe one way to put it would be that there's a kind of gambling that is purely entertainment, right? So you're going to watch the game, you're cheering, he's cheering. Let's put $5 on it, so that the guy whose team wins gets to have some proof that he was cheering for the right team. Whatever, you know, you could write it off as purely entertainment. The thing is that you go to the casino and you're putting whatever money in the slot machine, and you're saying, this is entertainment. This is pure entertainment. Just, it's costing me change to play this slot machine. It's not pure entertainment anymore if you hit the jackpot. Right?
And what are you doing to your soul
Yeah.
sitting there?
Yeah. And that'd be good. So what is your soul doing while you're sitting there? Is it hoping that and what kind of fantasy are you indulging by sitting there and pulling that lever?
Now, I did see a really good fantasy football punishment last week on Father's Day. We went to a Father's Day parade, and the loser of the fantasy football league had to sit in a dunk tank that was being pulled by a truck, and people could just come pull the rope, and he was dunked every time. Hey, I'm all about that.
Yeah, there's a kind of like, let's not take ourselves too seriously kind of a vibe there.
Now, Doug Wilson has a really good quip on this when people say you can't legislate morality. And his quip is, well, can you legislate immorality?
Right. Right. So I think that maybe a caution in thinking about legislation is, the caution is to say, like, you can't produce moral people by legislation, but the government needs to see itself as holding at bay the worst kinds of immorality to the best of its ability.
Well, you can certainly produce immoral people. I mean, this is
Yeah.
why the fight versus Roe v. Wade was so important, because it's not that if you make abortion illegal, you're going to all of a sudden eliminate abortion. Like, I don't think anybody's ever thought that, but there's a very big difference on the government sanctioning something versus not
Yeah.
sanctioning something.
Right. This makes me think of, is it in Malachi? Then once more, Malachi 3:18. Once more, you shall see the distinction between the righteous and the wicked. So having good laws doesn't make wicked people good, but it does make clear the distinction between righteousness and wickedness, which the righteous people need, lest they fall into the snare of wickedness. Right. So how many people make bad, immoral decisions in really significant matters like marriage or sexuality, because they've been told by the legislation that it's okay. How many no fault divorces have been carried out because you can do it?
Exactly. Yeah. If there was a huge financial impediment to that, I'm not saying that's a good reason to stay together, but it's like Peter Scar always says, he doesn't really care about your motives for keeping the child alive. He just wants to keep the child alive.
Yeah, that's the starting place, right? Yeah, there's these two things going on at the same time. I'm thinking this is really interesting because I was engaging a question about, like, how do you talk to somebody? Suppose you have a homosexual couple that want to adopt a baby. Like, where do you even begin with talking to them? Suppose they're friends they're your friends. How do you even begin talking to them about the fact that that's not good? And as I was thinking about it, it's like, well, you really can't talk about that without without a clear description of what is good from the get go. Like, if you don't have a common understanding but by what standard are we measuring goodness? You have no hope, and the best you could do is kind of like talk about outcomes, and in fact, outcomes sometimes work against what God says is good, right?
Purely naked outcomes, but if your outcome is to glorify God, which ought to be the ultimate outcome,
For sure.
yeah, absolutely. This is why you can't. The arguments with Christian nationalism are so silly because one side is pretending that you can just eliminate God from all legislation. Well, if you don't have God, you don't have any legislation.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. And so there's this always this. I mean, it's always imperfect, and I think that that's probably thinking about politics. We talked about this last time. What needs to be preached regularly, and that is the Christian's relationship to the civil realm.
Hmm.
Like part of that is acknowledging the the imperfection of our efforts, but also still the value of those efforts, right? So you are not going to win this fight, but you might by winning these skirmishes um, accomplish lots of good, and that's what you're supposed to do, right?
Right. And neither of us are under any illusion that the U.S. government is going to convert Christians.
Right, right.
Because only so this is why being Lutheran is great because we acknowledge only the gospel can do that, but we also have to acknowledge that the law comes from God. So why not both?
Yeah, yeah. Hmm. When I think about the challenges of living in this world, it is among other things that I I think about, like having to wrestle against your own flesh, but also just like the fact that there is no political solution, um, really makes you long for a kingdom. Uh, what is it? What is it in Hebrews? What does he says? A heaven that a homeland that has foundations. What does he say? That Abraham in Titus, Philemon, Hebrews, James. Hang on, it's in Hebrews chapter 11. For people, yeah, these all died in faith, not having received the things promised, but having seen them and greeted them from afar. So in some sense, like reflecting on both the work to do as well as the limitations of that work in this world prompts you to see how things could be and greet them from afar, and thus having acknowledged that they were strangers and exiles on the earth. For people who speak thus make it clear they are seeking a homeland. So like when you strive to make this land as much like that land, you demonstrate that you are hoping for that land, right?
Hmm. Yeah, that's really good.
Let us desire a better country, right? This is so rich. If they had been thinking of that land from which they had gone out, they would have had opportunity return, right? And this is where when worldliness infects the church, you can see that it's a longing to return to the land that you came out of, right? And you can see how the churches that adhere to that kind of philosophy become more and more like the world, right? And you succeed in return because you had an opportunity to go back, and so you did.
Oh, okay, good. So we're not longing to return to 1950s America. We're longing for heaven.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah, and so then but as it is, they desire a better country that is a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for He has prepared for them a city. Yeah, yeah.
Hey,
Paul's great.
I I agree. Hebrews by Paul, phenomenal book. What's grinding your gears?
I just picked up a new book. I've been enjoying lately just going to the library and looking at kind of like the leadership business section. So the storyteller's secret in this book is about um, like the power of narrative. I just started the the preface, the introduction, and it's no like big mystery that telling stories is a fruitful way to communicate. But I'd like to think about um, the balance, because I am a very you'll find this shocking, I know, when I say it. I am a very analytic, linear thinker. And so what I want to do is I want to line out the argument, and I want it to be deductive. and I want you to be persuaded because I took you through all of the logical steps to get to the conclusion. But I realize full well that um, that some of the best communication does not do that, and instead gives you a narrative, if you will, or other kind of like other kinds of communication, and allows you to draw your own conclusion. And the hope is that you've put this out there, and the hope is that they will reach their conclusion. I see, for instance, great authors like C.S. Lewis doing this. Of course, Mere Christianity is very linear, but even within Mere Christianity, he does a lot of things in a parabolic or analogical way, and you have to buy into it, you know.
Sure. Do you think about this on when you preach? Is that your kind of your sermon? Is an argument or?
Yeah, I do think of it as an argument, and I'm not sure that I'm like I'm not saying that I want to give that up, because I think that you do need to deliver, you know, do need to deliver facts, like instructional content. But I think maybe in terms of persuasion, like
Mhm.
in terms of changing people's minds about things, I think that there needs to be another element, right?
Yeah, I think the Bible is not only an argument, but it certainly is an argument against all the other false gods.
Yeah, right, right. Yeah. I mean, it's like I just like there's so much room to get better at these things. And the more I think about it, the more I realize how quickly I become impoverished, and how quickly I fall into ruts, and how what a disservice that does to my people if I'm not like actively trying to persuade them of good things. Right?
So are you thinking about injecting more illustrative stories, or like arcing your entire sermon with an overarching story?
I think that uh, the compositional task of the latter, having the whole thing be narrative, I think that's too big of a compositional task for the time that I have to prepare. If I was like a an Alistair Begg, and my job is to preach for 45 minutes once a week, and that's what I do. I think that then you have time to do that. And so instead, I do think that if I like think, here I have 3 points in the sermon, um, and to make this point, I don't need to drive it into the ground, which is what I want to do. But instead, I might be able to this week just kind of like float it, and that like in a narrative way, and then I can do that again the following week. I think that might be more effective. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, sure. It's good.
What's grinding your gears?
I had a terrible reading week because I just had way too much going on. I was hosting continuing education at my church. We had Dr. John Bruss, president of the seminary, come and teach on the 7 ecumenical councils last week, and I was hosting, and uh, very good. Makes me want to read even more patristics. My friend from Utah came up, played golf a few times. That was fun. Had a wedding on Friday, so I had to go to the rehearsal dinner right after class on Thursday, and then attended a wedding on Saturday. But listening to lots of New Yorker articles on the road was a great time. So, article on Ken Griffin. You familiar with that billionaire?
No.
He is just a financial titan and donates to a lot of political causes. Based in Miami now, so that was intriguing. And then there was also a good one on the science behind grief,
Good.
and that was good as well. These personal. So getting to your point about telling like narrative stories and then injecting like other things in it, these personal stories about how you suffer with this particular one was this woman's husband just died all of a sudden, and they were like 30 and they have a kid at home, and it's like very emotional, very tragic, and then learning like how she copes with it. That's very powerful. And this is why I think like stories, when we tell them as pastors, can be very powerful. We just gotta pick and choose, and then ask, what are we trying to convey here? Is it merely emotional manipulation, or is it serving the text in some way?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. That's right. I think my allergy to emotional manipulation, I overreact. I've got I need some antihistamines to slow my reaction. Which is your least favorite ecumenical council?
The seventh one, for sure.
Okay.
Chemnitz calls it an idol worshiping council. So
Nice.
that's where we get the distinction between what worshiping and um, what is it, reverencing. It's the
Mm.
distinction that's in there, which probably is splitting hairs a little bit too much. I'm not an iconoclast, but you shouldn't pray to icons either.
Yeah, fair enough. Sounds like a pretty safe thing to say.
Perfect. Well, hey,
All right,
you have yourself a week.
you too. Take it easy.